Hello Aaron, the will tells a story in which a girl who thought she was better than me best me for 6 months. But my mother, I condemned her and her mother. Yes, an amazing story. European in the comments, enjoy your waving.
A girl who thought she was better than me bullied me for half a year, but my mother and I sued her and her mom. Hi, everyone. I am Sarah, a 16-year-old junior in high school. I never thought I'd be sharing my story on here, but I need advice on what to do. It all started at the beginning of this school year. I've always been a bit of an introvert, preferring books over parties and close friends over large crowds. I've been okay with that. But this year, things took a turn for the worse. Our school has always had a bit of a clique problem. There's the popular group, led by Jessica, who's pretty much the queen bee. She's gorgeous, wealthy, and everyone either wants to be her or be friends with her. I've always stayed out of her way, but somehow I ended up on her radar. It all started when I was assigned to work on a group project with Jessica and her friends, Megan and Emily, for our history class. I was nervous but determined to do my part. From the very beginning, it was clear they didn't want me there. They would roll their eyes when I spoke and ignore my suggestions. I tried my best to contribute, but they always found a way to shut me down. One day, after school, I was in the library finishing up my part of the project. Jessica, Megan, and Emily walked in, laughing about something. They saw me and, of course, made a beeline for my table. Jessica smirked and said, "Oh, look, it's the nerd, burying herself in books as usual. Got any new spells to share, Hermione?" I tried to laugh it off, but it hurt. "I'm just finishing our project. Did you guys finish your parts?" Jessica rolled her eyes. "Yeah, whatever. We're done. Just make sure you don't mess it up." After that encounter, things started to escalate. They'd bump into me in the hallways, accidentally spill their drinks on my clothes, and spread rumors about me. The whispers and giggles followed me everywhere I went. My locker was vandalized with cruel messages, and my books would often go missing. I didn't want to tell my parents because I didn't want to worry them. My mom, Claire, is a nurse, always busy with night shifts, and my dad, Tom, is a truck driver, often on the road. They have enough on their plates. I also didn't want to seem like a tattletale at school. I thought I could handle it, but it was getting harder and harder to keep it all in. One day during lunch, I was sitting alone at my usual spot when Jessica and her minions decided to have some fun. They walked up to my table carrying their trays. "Is this seat taken?" Megan asked with a fake sweet voice. No," I stammered, hoping they would just go away. They sat down, surrounding me. Jessica looked at my lunch and wrinkled her nose. "What's that supposed to be? Are you on some kind of poverty diet?" I felt my face turn red. "It's just a sandwich," I muttered. "Looks disgusting," Emily said, pushing her tray towards me. "Here, have some real food." She dumped her uneaten spaghetti onto my tray, and they all burst out laughing. I grabbed my stuff and ran to the bathroom, tears streaming down my face. I locked myself in a stall and cried, feeling utterly defeated. That's when I heard a voice. "Hey, are you okay?" I looked up, startled. It was Lily, a girl from my math class. She was standing outside the stall, looking concerned. "Yeah, I'm fine," I lied, trying to compose myself. "Doesn't look like it. Those girls are awful." "You shouldn't have to deal with that," she said gently. I opened the stall door and she handed me a tissue. "Thanks," I whispered, feeling a flicker of hope. Lily sat with me in the bathroom for the rest of the lunch period, just talking about random things to distract me. For the first time in weeks, I felt like someone actually cared. That day marked the beginning of our friendship. Lily and I started hanging out more, and she introduced me to her friends, Sam and Michael. They were different from Jessica and her crew. They were kind, funny, and didn't judge me for being myself. But Jessica didn't like seeing me happy. She upped her game, finding new ways to humiliate me. One day, she even tripped me in front of everyone during gym class, causing me to sprain my ankle. I was at my breaking point. The constant bullying was affecting my grades, my sleep, and my mental health. I didn't know how much more I could take. Despite finding new friends in Lily, Sam, and Michael, the bullying from Jessica and her clique continued. Each day felt like a new challenge, a new humiliation. I tried to endure it, hoping it would eventually stop, but things only got worse. One morning, I walked into school to find my locker completely trashed. Someone had thrown paint all over it, and there were horrible words scrawled in red: loser, freak, and worthless. My heart sank as I saw the mocking faces of Jessica and her friends nearby. "Like your new look, Sarah?" Jessica sneered. Her friends giggled, high-fiving each other. I wanted to scream, to cry, but instead I took a deep breath and started to clean up the mess. My friends found me and helped, their comforting words making it a bit easier to bear. But inside, I was crumbling. The relentless torment was taking its toll, and I felt like I was losing myself. My grades were slipping, and I could hardly sleep at night. I didn't want to go to school anymore, but I knew I couldn't let them win. It was during one of our hangouts that Lily finally spoke up. "Sarah, this has to stop. We can't let them get away with this anymore." Sam and Michael nodded in agreement. "We need to do something," Michael added. "Something that will make them think twice before messing with you again." We brainstormed for hours, coming up with a plan that would turn the tables on Jessica and her gang. It was risky, but we were desperate. We decided to hit them where it would hurt the most, their reputation. Jessica and her friends thrived on being popular and admired. If we could expose their true colors, maybe we could put an end to the bullying. The first step was gathering evidence. We needed proof of their cruelty. Lily suggested we use our phones to record their taunts and pranks. It wasn't hard. Jessica and her friends were always showing off. We managed to capture several incidents on video, including the locker vandalism and verbal abuse. Next, we created a fake Instagram account. We called it Truth Unveiled and started posting the videos anonymously. We knew it would spread like wildfire in our school. The posts showed Jessica and her clique in their true nasty light. We made sure to time the posts perfectly, dropping a new video every day. It didn't take long for the account to gain attention. The students were shocked, and whispers filled the hallways. People who had admired Jessica were now avoiding her, disgusted by her behavior. But we didn't stop there. We needed to make a more direct impact. We planned a special event at school, an anti-bullying assembly. With the help of a sympathetic teacher, we managed to get it approved. The entire school was required to attend. The day of the assembly arrived, and the auditorium was packed. Jessica and her friends sat smugly in the front row, unaware of what was about to happen. I was nervous, but my friends stood by me, giving me the courage I needed. As the assembly began, the principal gave a speech about the importance of kindness and respect. Then, it was our turn. We walked up to the stage, and I took a deep breath, my heart pounding. "Good morning, everyone," I began, my voice shaking slightly. "Today, we want to talk about something very important: bullying. Many of you might not know this, but I've been a victim of bullying for months." There were gasps from the audience. Jessica's face turned pale. She exchanged nervous glances with her friends as I continued. "We've created a short video to show you what I've been through." I signaled to Michael, who started the video. The room fell silent as the video played, showing clip after clip of Jessica and her friends tormenting me. The audience watched in shock as the evidence unfolded before their eyes. By the time the video ended, there wasn't a sound in the auditorium. I took a deep breath and looked out at the crowd. This is what I've been dealing with. And I know I'm not the only one. Bullying needs to stop, and it starts with us standing up and speaking out. The principal stepped back onto the stage, looking furious. "Thank you, Sarah, for your bravery. We will be dealing with this matter immediately." Jessica and her friends were escorted out of the auditorium by the teachers, their faces red with shame. For the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of relief. The bullying might not be over completely, but it was a step towards reclaiming my life. My friends hugged me tightly, and I knew I wasn't alone anymore. We had taken a stand, and that made all the difference. The days following the assembly were a whirlwind. News spread quickly that Jessica, Megan, and Emily had been expelled from school. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. However, our victory was short-lived. One afternoon, as I was sitting in the living room with my mom, Claire, we received a phone call from the school principal, Mr. Thompson. "Mrs. Johnson, we need to inform you that Jessica's mother, Mrs. Evans, has filed a lawsuit against the school and Sarah. She's claiming that the expulsion was unjust and that Sarah orchestrated the entire situation," Mr. Thompson said, his voice heavy with concern. My mom's face turned pale as she listened. "This is absurd! Sarah has been the victim here," she argued. "I understand, Mrs. Johnson." But Mrs. Evans has presented evidence that she claims proves Sarah instigated the bullying and manipulated the videos. We need to prepare for a legal battle, Mr. Thompson explained. After hanging up, my mom looked at me with a mixture of anger and determination. We're going to fight this, Sarah. I'll hire the best lawyer we can find. True to her word, my mom contacted Mr. Williams, a reputable lawyer known for handling school-related cases. He met with us the next day, and we began to prepare for what would be a long and grueling court case. The first day of the trial was nerve-wracking. The courtroom was filled with students, parents, and teachers who had come to witness the proceedings. The atmosphere was tense as both sides presented their arguments. Mrs. Evans, Jessica's mother, was the first to take the stand. She confidently presented her case, claiming that the expulsion was based on manipulated evidence. She argued that the videos were edited to make Jessica and her friends look like the aggressors, while in reality, Sarah had been provoking them for months. She even presented a few doctored videos that supposedly showed me taunting and bullying Jessica and her friends. It was clear that these were heavily edited, but they planted seeds of doubt in the minds of the jury. Next, it was my turn to testify. With Mr. Williams by my side, I recounted the months of torment I had endured. I explained how the videos we posted on Truth Unveiled were genuine and unedited, showing the true nature of Jessica and her friends' actions. Lily, Sam, and Michael also testified, supporting my story and describing the countless incidents of bullying they had witnessed. They were my rock throughout this ordeal, and their testimonies were crucial in establishing the truth. However, the defense was relentless. They cross-examined each of us, trying to poke holes in our stories and discredit our evidence. It was emotionally draining, and there were moments when I felt like giving up. Mrs. Evans had hired a skilled lawyer, Mr. Gray, who was known for his aggressive tactics. He grilled us on the stand, attempting to twist our words and make us appear unreliable. "You claim that Jessica and her friends vandalized your locker, correct?" Mr. Gray asked me. "Yes," I replied, my voice steady. "Do you have any proof that it was them? Any witnesses?" he pressed. "No, but I saw them nearby, laughing," I said. Mr. Gray smirked. "So you have no concrete evidence, just assumptions." I felt a knot in my stomach, but Mr. Williams quickly objected. "Objection, Your Honor. The witness has provided a consistent account of the harassment. The defense is attempting to intimidate her." "Objection sustained," the judge said, giving me a reassuring nod. The trial continued for days, with both sides presenting more evidence and witnesses. The tension in the courtroom was palpable, and the media had started covering the case, making it even more stressful. One of the turning points came when Mr. Williams presented a forensic analysis of the videos Jessica's mother had submitted. The expert testified that the videos had indeed been manipulated, highlighting discrepancies and editing marks that were invisible to the naked eye. "This analysis clearly shows that the evidence presented by the defense has been tampered with," Mr. Williams said. "The original videos posted by Sarah and her friends are genuine and unedited, capturing the true nature of the bullying." Mrs. Evans looked visibly shaken as the expert's testimony undermined her claims. It was a significant blow to their case, but Mr. Gray continued to fight back, trying to shift the focus away from the manipulated videos. The final day of the trial arrived, and the courtroom was filled with a mixture of hope and anxiety. Both sides gave their closing arguments, summarizing their cases and making one last plea to the jury. Mr. Williams stood up, his voice calm and confident. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you've seen the evidence. You've heard the testimonies. Sarah Johnson has been the victim of relentless bullying. The defense's attempt to manipulate the truth has been exposed. I urge you to see through their deception and deliver justice for Sarah." Mr. Gray, on the other hand, tried to sow doubt. "Ladies and gentlemen, this case is not as clear-cut as it seems. There are discrepancies, and we must consider the possibility that Sarah may have contributed to the conflict. We ask you to carefully weigh all the evidence before making your decision." The jury was sent to deliberate, and the wait felt like an eternity. My mom held my hand tightly, offering silent support. Finally, after what seemed like hours, the jury returned with their verdict. The foreman stood up and read the decision. "In the case of Evans v. Johnson in the school district, we find in favor of the defendant, Sarah Johnson." Relief washed over me as the words sank in. We had won. The truth had prevailed, and justice was served. The courtroom erupted in murmurs as Mrs. Evans and her lawyer looked defeated. My friends rushed to hug me, and my mom's eyes filled with tears of joy. Outside the courthouse, the media swarmed us, but I felt stronger now. I knew that I had stood up for myself and fought back against the bullies. It wasn't just a victory for me, but for everyone who had ever been bullied and felt powerless. As we walked away from the courthouse, I felt a sense of closure. This chapter of my life was finally over, and I could move forward with my head held high. The scars from the bullying would always be there, but they no longer defined me. I was stronger than ever and ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. After the court case, I felt a newfound sense of freedom. The bullying had stopped, and I could finally focus on my studies and friendships without constantly looking over my shoulder. I threw myself into my schoolwork, determined to make the most of this fresh start. However, adjusting back to normal life wasn't entirely smooth. Small problems cropped up, as they do for any teenager. My grades, which had suffered during the months of bullying, needed a lot of work to get back on track. I spent countless hours in the library, catching up on missed assignments and preparing for upcoming exams. It was exhausting, but I was driven by the desire to prove myself and reclaim the academic standing I once had. Socially, things were improving as well. My friends Lily, Sam, and Michael were always there to support me, and I started making new friends too. I joined the school's debate team, something I'd always wanted to do but never had the confidence for. It felt good to be part of a group and to have my voice heard. But life wasn't without its awkward moments. Some students still looked at me with a mix of curiosity and pity. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was known more for my past as a victim than for who I was trying to become. It was frustrating, but I kept reminding myself that people would eventually see me for more than just my history. One day after school, I decided to take a different route home, wanting to enjoy the crisp autumn air. I was walking down a quiet street when I heard a familiar voice behind me. It was Jessica. "Sarah, wait up!" she called out. I turned around, surprised to see her. She looked different, more worn out than I remembered. She jogged up to me, slightly out of breath. "Jessica, what are you doing here?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked at me with a mixture of sadness and desperation. "I've been meaning to talk to you. Can we go somewhere private?" I hesitated, unsure of her intentions, but something in her eyes made me believe she might be sincere. "Okay," I said cautiously. "Lead the way." We walked in silence for a few blocks until she led me down a narrow alley. My gut told me something was off, but before I could react, Jessica turned to face me, her expression hardening. "You ruined my life, Sarah," she hissed, stepping closer. I backed away, fear creeping up my spine. "Jessica, what are you talking about? I didn't ruin anything. You brought this on yourself." She laughed bitterly. "You think you're so perfect, don't you? Always playing the victim. Well, let me tell you something. Because of you, I lost everything. My friends, my reputation, my future." Before I could respond, she lunged at me, shoving me against the brick wall. Pain shot through my back, and I tried to push her away, but she was relentless. "You think you can just get away with it, don't you?" she snarled, throwing a punch that landed squarely on my cheek. My vision blurred as I stumbled, trying to regain my balance. "Jessica, stop! This isn't going to fix anything," I pleaded, but she was beyond reason. She grabbed my hair, yanking my head back and slamming it against the wall. Stars exploded in my vision, and I felt a warm trickle of blood running down my forehead. Panic surged through me, but I was too dazed to fight back effectively. "Everything was perfect until you came along," she spat, her fists raining down on me. She punched my stomach, knocking the wind out of me, and I doubled over in pain. "You don't understand what it's like to lose everything," she screamed, kicking me in the ribs. I crumpled to the ground, curling into a ball to protect myself from her relentless assault. "Jessica, please," I whimpered, tears mixing with the blood on my face. "This won't change anything. It'll only make things worse." She kicked me again, harder this time, and I cried out in agony. "I hate you, Sarah. You've destroyed my life, and now I'm going to make you pay." I tried to crawl away, but she grabbed my ankle, dragging me back. The rough pavement scraped against my skin, adding to the pain. She knelt beside me, her face twisted with rage. "You think you're so brave, don't you?" she whispered, her voice dripping with venom. "You think you can just walk away from everything you've done?" Her fist connected with my jaw, and I felt a sickening crack. Pain radiated through my face, and I tasted blood in my mouth. I was too weak to fight back, my body trembling from the relentless beating. "Jessica, please," I managed to choke out, barely able to speak. "I never wanted this. I just wanted the bullying to stop." She paused, her fist raised for another blow. For a moment, I saw a flicker of doubt in her eyes. But then her expression hardened again, and she delivered another punch, this time to my ribs. I felt something inside me snap, and a searing pain shot through my chest. I gasped for breath, tears streaming down my face. "Stop it, Jessica!" a voice shouted from behind her. I barely registered what was happening as Jessica was suddenly pulled off me. I saw Lily and Michael rushing to my side, their faces pale with horror. "Sarah, are you okay?" Lily asked, her voice shaking. I tried to nod but winced from the pain. I need a doctor," I whispered, my voice barely audible. Michael called for an ambulance while Lily held my hand, trying to comfort me. Jessica stood a few feet away, her face pale and her hands trembling. She looked like she wanted to say something, but then she turned and ran, disappearing into the night. The paramedics arrived quickly, and I was rushed to the hospital. The doctors worked to stabilize me, and I spent the next few days recovering from my injuries. My mom stayed by my side the entire time, her face etched with worry and anger. We filed a police report, and Jessica was arrested for assault. The legal battle that followed was intense, but this time I wasn't alone. My friends, my mom, and even some of my classmates supported me, ensuring that justice was served. As I lay in my hospital bed healing from my wounds, I realized that I was stronger than I had ever given myself credit for. The scars from the bullying and the assault would always be a part of me, but they no longer defined me. I was a survivor, and I knew that no matter what came next, I would face it head-on, with the strength and resilience that had carried me through this nightmare. After I was released from the hospital, I knew that I couldn't let Jessica and her mother get away with what they had done. With the support of my mom, friends, and the community, I decided to take legal action against Jessica and her mother, Mrs. Evans. They needed to be held accountable, not just for my sake, but to prevent this from happening to anyone else. Our lawyer, Mr. Williams, filed the lawsuit, and the case quickly gained attention. The media covered every detail, and the school community watched closely. This time it wasn't just about my suffering, it was about standing up against a culture of bullying and abuse. The trial began a few months later. Jessica and her mother were charged with assault, and Mrs. Evans faced additional charges for child neglect and failing to control her daughter's violent behavior. The courtroom was once again filled with familiar faces, students, teachers, parents, all eager to see justice served. Mr. Williams presented our case with precision. He called witnesses to testify about the bullying I had endured, including the recent assault. Lily, Sam, and Michael provided powerful testimonies, describing how they had found me battered and broken after Jessica's attack. "I'll never forget the look in her eyes," Lily said, her voice trembling. "It was pure rage. She wanted to hurt Sarah, and she did." Michael added, "We barely got there in time. If we hadn't, I don't know what would have happened." The prosecution also brought in the forensic expert who had analyzed the doctored videos in the previous trial. He confirmed that Jessica and her mother had manipulated evidence before and were capable of doing it again. When it was time for Jessica to testify, she looked defeated. She recounted her troubled relationship with her mother, who had pushed her to maintain her social status at all costs. It became clear that Mrs. Evans had instilled toxic values in her daughter, encouraging her to bully and manipulate others to stay on top. "My mother always told me that I had to be the best no matter what," Jessica admitted, her voice breaking. "She said that people like Sarah were just obstacles in my way. I didn't know how to stop." Mrs. Evans, however, remained defiant. She denied any wrongdoing and claimed that she was only trying to protect her daughter. "Sarah and her friends are the real bullies," she insisted. "They've been targeting Jessica from the beginning." Mr. Williams cross-examined her, revealing the contradictions in her statements and exposing her lies. The jury watched as Mrs. Evans' facade crumbled under the weight of the evidence against her. After several days of testimonies and arguments, the jury was sent to deliberate. The wait was agonizing. I sat with my mom, holding her hand tightly, my heart pounding in my chest. Finally, the jury returned with their verdict. The foreman stood up and read the decision. In the case of Johnson v. Evans, we find the defendants guilty on all charges. Relief washed over me as the courtroom erupted in murmurs. Mrs. Evans and Jessica were visibly shaken. The judge then delivered the sentences. Mrs. Evans was sentenced to 5 years in prison for child neglect and conspiracy to commit assault. Jessica, being a minor, was sentenced to a juvenile detention center until she turned 18, followed by mandatory therapy and community service. As the sentences were read, Mrs. Evans broke down, pleading for leniency, but the judge remained firm. Your actions have caused irreparable harm, not just to Sarah, but to your own daughter. It's time for you to face the consequences. Jessica looked at me with tears in her eyes. I'm sorry, Sarah. I'm really sorry. I nodded, feeling a mixture of sorrow and relief. I hope you can change, Jessica. I really do. With the trial over, I felt a sense of closure. It had been a long, painful journey, but justice had been served. The experience had changed me, made me stronger, and shown me the power of standing up for what's right. In the following months, life slowly returned to normal. I focused on my studies, my friendships, and my future. The community rallied around me, and I felt more supported than ever. I continued to participate in the debate team and even started volunteering at a local youth center, helping other kids who had been bullied. The scars from the past would always be there, but they no longer defined me. I had faced my demons and come out stronger. And as I walked through the halls of my school, I held my head high, knowing that I had made a difference. My story had a ripple effect, inspiring others to speak out against bullying and stand up for themselves. The school implemented new anti-bullying policies, ensuring a safer environment for everyone. It wasn't just my victory, it was a victory for all of us who had ever felt powerless. As I looked toward the future, I felt hopeful. I knew that challenges would come, but I also knew that I had the strength to overcome them. I had faced the darkness and emerged into the light, ready to embrace whatever came next.
Hello, it's really amazing story. What do you think? Write comment, put like, subscribe to channel on Instagram and Discord. Good luck!